So this is OnePlan. I'm going to talk about this let me say this. I'm going to gloss over certain things that you're certainly going to wish that you could ask questions about. You should circle back with me and say, I would love it if you could spend 10 minutes kind of walking through this particular item. Anytime that you can provide a set of questions that are of interest to you, I'm more than happy to answer these things. And again, available to you is a custom demo if that's what you would like. I'm happy to get on and schedule that, and then this could be completely interactive. Or you could have a free trial, or we can refer you to one of the many videos we have that work on certain, or that show certain features. So you've got a lot of options to learn more if I gloss over something, and I certainly will. The basic OnePlan interface, as you can see, we have some featured navigation down the side. We'll go over each one of these. Across the top, we have our ability to create new items. Plan type, kind of a core piece of OnePlan itself. This is configurable, so a plan type can be anything, quite honestly. In this case, we have it's built around an account hierarchy, including accounts, projects, opportunities, operations, and support. But there's no functional limit to this, and you certainly are not stuck with an account-centric approach. Basic navigation around trees, group by, again, completely configurable. You can see we've got a long list here. We're not going to go through any of this, but you can, you not only get out of the box group by, but you can configure what you need. Selecting columns, filtering, row height plan. We will go down and talk about these widgets in a little bit, so we'll circle back on that. Across the top, you have what may be of interest, what we call lists. These are, again, configurable views. You happen to be looking at the account summary in this case. You can see it over here, but we have many different kinds of views, and again, these are all configurable depending on what you need. We have board views, which we will talk about in a bit again as well, but this should be unsurprising in terms of what it is, and roadmap views as well. The key is, in any case with this, when you configure and implement this, you will be in a position to say, I don't need that roadmap stuff. I need to focus on these other things. You can do that, and by role, nobody will have to look at the roadmap. We'll talk about dashboard again in a minute. So across the bottom, and again, these features are common across many of these views, you have a set of details that are built on each one of the plan types. So you can create new plans. You can do a quick edit. I'll show that very quickly. Over here, you can see that you have stages, name, manager, industry, account description. These are all configurable, again, by account type. So for example, when you have a project, you won't necessarily have the same look or the same stages. You'll have something that's suitable to the project. You can make comments, and you can add new items as well. Of course, you're going to be able to drill down. And you can see in this particular example, we have, for this account, projects, opportunities, support, and well, in this case, we don't have operations, but we can. Why does this matter if you're looking about services optimization? In the case of selling into an account that already exists, in this case, we'll just assume that it does, you may have 4 opportunities showing. You may want to know not only what that impact is on revenue or likely revenue, you may want to know what that impact is, you probably do, on the potential resource pool you will need to meet these contractual obligations that you're suggesting. All of that stuff is available in one place alongside what you're actually already working on. This is a key point because this puts your organization in a position to be proactive about hiring, or the less happy scenario where you actually have excess staff. But we'll show in a little bit how you can move the staff from one piece to the next. Okay, usually I stop and ask people for questions, so I have this tendency that I'm having to really overcome because I would love to have some questions, but like I said, please make sure you kind of get back to me with any questions you might have. Basics of timesheets, important to everybody. I'm just going to lightly touch on this because I think that they're a pretty bread and butter opportunity for anybody. Table stakes, really, if you're talking about a services system. But we have a timesheeting system. It does exactly what you think it will. It can copy itself from one week to the next. It can be configured to do weekly time entry, daily time entry, or smaller increments. It can be, you can have individual views depending on what you need, and they are all customizable. It has an approval process, a rejection process, and a full audit process. If there's any questions about what timesheets does beyond this, I'm happy to take those after the fact. But I think in general, we can expect timesheets to work exactly like you'd hope they would work. And unless you have some particularly unusual circumstance, the collection of time and the tracking of time does what it's supposed to do. So let's talk for a minute about resource planning. You know what? Actually, what I'm going to do instead of that, let's just to kind of keep the structure of this, I'm going to come down into Contoso, into this project, and just make clear that the basics of scheduling in a waterfall fashion are natively in the system. If you again take a look at the details pane, you'll see if we open quick edit for this item, you can see that this is different because it is a task instead of an account. You're able to comment, etc. And moreover, we're able to look at this if we choose to in terms of a board, so that we can pull things around and plan them in terms of a Kanban board if that's really what we're after. Back to details. Oops, sorry. Back to the work plan and the list view. Alongside this, I want to kind of call our attention to the fact that we have baseline, critical path, timeline. I'm going to click show sprints on this, although I don't think we have particularly good data. But in this case, yeah, we don't. We're able to build sprints alongside this. Like I said earlier, if you want to combine Agile and Waterfall, you're able to do so without any particular problem. We're also, and I think this is of interest to people in organizations with complex schedules where they don't want to have everything land on everybody's timesheet, we're able to show activities that aren't necessarily ever going to be something that somebody's going to want to put time against. So you think about this, you've established a task, it's got 600 hours in it, you want people to bill against that task, but you don't want to have them see things any deeper than that. However, you do still want punch lists that enable you to track what people are doing on these tasks. That's what activities can work for. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. I will also finally show the resource plan for this particular project. In this case, we're showing people assigned to this project and what their impact is based on what their time is. You can see that we've got various, you can see that it's highlighted according to the availability and their capacity. This puts you in a position right in the project schedule itself, and I guess this is very important to us, saying that all these things are first-class citizens. You are able to look at resource capacity as you're working on the schedule itself. So your project manager that may be focused on the schedule, or your engagement manager, whereas your engagement manager may be focused on profitability, you have a resource capacity planner that is working on making sure that people are maximally utilized. They're all able to work in the same tool and resolve their differences in one space. Okay. The resource plan itself. Now, what we just talked about was maybe a more scheduling-centric view of the world. This is a more resource capacity planning-centric view of the world, where you have your entire resource pool able to be seen in one place, and they're not only what they're working on, but where they're over capacity or under capacity, hence needing more work. Across the top, you can see we've got some changes. First of all, we're able to talk about this in terms of scheduled, timesheet time, or committed time, so you've got flexibility there. We're able to add candidates as we need. I'll talk about that in a second. We're able to, again, to have different views on these things depending on how you want to plan. We're able to open and close this. We're able to do this in terms of hours, percentage FTE, and we're able to delegate and do other tasks like this as well. So again, I know that I'm glossing over a lot of these widgets, any one of which might be interesting, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to keep rolling forward and hope that people get back to me with specific questions. So if I instead want to take a look at, let's see, if I come down and I want to look at solution architect, and I want to find resources by best match, please select OnePlan, sorry. I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at this Contoso engineering, and I'm going to say find resources by best match. I'm going to get a suggested list of resources that I can use in this particular project. Now, you can see that we've got a lot of different ways of looking at this stuff and finding these. In every organization, there will be a favored process. We know this, but we have the flexibility to support you is really what this comes down to. So in this scenario, the thing that I want to emphasize is not only are we able to look at this as a resource capacity planning exercise, we're able to add resources, swap resources, move them around, depending on what you need to do in terms of depending on what your process is. Okay. So the modeler, at this point, I would hope that everybody has kind of recognized and thought through, hey, you know, if we're able to add all of these various things to these projects and to our demand pool, how do we keep them all straight? I mean, you know, I've made this model. What do I do with it once I've made it? Does it get published? Does it become what our actual plan? Do I store it as a draft? The key to this is, yes, OnePlan enables you to build effectively an unlimited number of models based on whatever assumptions it is that you want. You're able to see it in terms of a Gantt chart, of course. You're able to see this in terms of resource plans. I'm going to skip that one. Pivot charts. It goes on and on. You're able to save both models and scenarios within those models. And within that, you then say, if you stay selecting on the scenario active work, I'm able to take a look and say, okay, what does this mean? In this particular scenario, we've decided that we cannot pursue these opportunities due to these resource constraints. You're able to make changes to this model, store it, come back to it, do exactly what you wish to with it. Now, where this usually comes into play is in two different ways. One, you are a resource capacity planner, and it is your constant job, multiple times a day, to answer the question, what if we close this deal? What is the impact of this deal? The second way, and this maybe is just as important, you have an executive and or some senior staff member who refuses to understand why certain things can't be done or why hiring needs to be made. In both cases, you're able to construct models on the side. They're visual, they're easy to understand, they're manipulatable in real time. You're able to sit in a meeting and explain, this is what's actually happening. These are the what ifs that can be supported. These are the outcomes that you will get, and these are the conditions that you expect. Okay. All right. I'm not going to save this. All right, so from an account perspective, and this is important as well, OnePlan supplies a large number of dashboards across many different types. You can see that there's a ton of eye candy associated with them, but they are yours to manipulate and to change as you see fit. They are available out of the box. These, of course, are all exportable, which I think is a key component as well. And in the end, as you can see, we're able to look at this both from a portfolio standpoint, financial standpoint, planning standpoint, the key is to understand that all of this information is available out of OnePlan. Yes, Power BI reports are out of the box, but if you have another reporting tool, the same information is available to you to use and to build as you see fit. Okay. So one thing I want to touch on before we're done is the third kind of planning that we support. Let me come back to this. Go back to our account summary, drill down, and take a look at financials. The third kind of planning that you see people undertake, and this is very important, is what we call financial planning. This is taking the cost or the revenue or both. You can do two different threads, and I'll show that in a second, and saying we're going to build our vision of the future around these cost or revenue categories. And that is going to supply what we optimize on or what I want to see in the end. Now, usually people ask questions at this point like, well, can we build a resource capacity plan, calculate the resources from that plan and create the financial plan? And the answer is yes. Can we contrast what we thought was the financial plan with what actually happened, or with what was actually invoiced, or with what we planned in terms of resource capacity planning? The answer to that is yes as well. And again, I want to kind of highlight that at this point, it should be obvious this is a very powerful tool for making sure that the sources of friction in organizations and the areas for optimization are supported by OnePlan's integrated planning function.